One sector that's not been doing too well is infrastructure. The government has moved in to allow the NHAI, the National Highway Authority, to monetize its assets through InvITs. Raghav Chandra, former chairman NHAI, joins us with some perspective on NHAI's financial leverage and whether this InvITs will be a bit of a safety valve. Good morning, Mr. Chandra. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, first of all, will this InvIT move be very beneficial?
I think it's a step in the correct direction to have the ability to form an InvIT, and this has discussion on this has been on the anvil since 2016. I remember it was there when I was there also, and we had initiated it. This is an enabling provision. It does not resolve all of NHAI's problems in one go, but it is definitely one positive step, because it will allow NHAI to bundle much of its assets, which sometimes on a discrete basis it's difficult to offload, because a potential investor starts looking at what value comes in from each individual asset. So bundling them together in a larger basket, and they can start with some assets worth about 4,000, 5,000 crores, and in due course raise it to 15 or 20,000 crores. This will allow a diversity of diverse range of assets. It will allow more investors to get involved in this, and it will also allow patient capital, which may dread getting involved directly in individual assets, to look at a larger framework for their money to be utilized.
Okay, well, the InvIT market is quite crowded at the moment. Is there really appetite for NHAI's assets at all? Because NHAI has a large number of assets after all.
No, each one has their own set of assets, and so it really doesn't matter. And certainly NHAI should carry more credibility, because it is, a government-sponsored institution. It is an authority, and at the end of the day, NHAI is responsible for what it is bringing into the market, much more than any private entity. So prima facie, I don't see that it should crowd the market or anything. I think the market has an appetite for good infrastructure assets, and certainly road assets are good liquid monetary assets, and they should carry a lot of credibility and value.
So how much time will it take to do the first InvIT? I mean, can you give us any ballpark timeline?
My guess would be about 3 months they should get it rolling. They should be able to get it rolling in 3 months.
Okay, so within the next 3 months itself. But will the first funds, will it come in this fiscal itself, in FY20?
Yes, I would expect that maybe not in this financial year, but certainly in the next few months after that, the funds should come in, and these are going to be largely offloaded to, in the first instance, to in a private placement to institutional investors like the pension funds, etc. So I don't think there should be any difficulty for NHAI to be able to raise funds through this route in the next few months. It may take beyond March, but they should be able to do it.
Okay, the one big issue for NHAI has been its rising debt. Do you think it is dangerously stretched at the moment, and what's the outlook now?
Yes, I think that it is getting too stressed. It is very large. It's today about 2 lakh crores. And that's certainly, or more, and that's certainly a matter of, certainly a matter of concern, if not dread. And NHAI has to be cautious and conscious of what it's up to. But its exposure to, or LIC's exposure to NHAI is about 30,000, 35,000 crores. SBI is about 25, EPFO is about 50, it has its own bonds and all that which have been floated in the past. That is a matter, an issue. But the flip side is that NHAI is ultimately a government entity. And being a government entity, it may not have the, the written sort of commitment of the government, but it has the tacit support of the government. And, one can certainly expect government to stand behind NHAI's commitments. So that is the trust on which the whole thing is working. Otherwise, LIC and EPFO would not put in their money were it not for this sense of trust and comfort. But as a financial sort of analysis and in a very rigorous kind of way, it's not the best way to go forward. And I would not feel very comfortable with this sort of route being taken continuously over the years, and to reach a state where NHAI's debt reaches a huge amount, because ultimately you have to ensure that an institution like this focuses on its core activities, which are road building and ensuring that the infrastructure and connectivity and access are undertaken in a plausible, credible, effective way, rather than to focus on raising funds.
But, Mr. Chandra, is there any interest at all in the private sector picking up the tab? The interest seems to be only in doing EPC projects. And now with interest rates rising after yesterday's inflation number, won't there be, again, a lack of interest for BOT and HAM, where the private sector has to bring in the money?
I do. And certainly hybrid annuity also, some of the road builders have said that whereas bank rates have, come down, as a result of which in hybrid annuity, the 60% that is paid back to them over a long period of 15 years in installments. So they are supposed to get the bank rate plus 3%. And however, the lending rates have not come down commensurately. So that is a big issue. And so people who have bid for these projects, though they may have got financial closure, however, they are facing this crunch. So all these are issues which need to be resolved. They are not impossible issues. They are not rocket science, but someone has to look at them compassionately, sensitively, so as to, you have to be very clear of where you are heading. What is it that your larger objective is? I think they are aware of it, but somebody needs to spell it out in greater detail and, get the right decisions taken at the right level.
But the fact of the matter is that project tendering has slowed down quite a bit. So how much will NHAI be able to tender in the balance part of this fiscal? And do you see tendering pick up anytime soon?
Yeah, I think NHAI has made a conscious attempt to slow down because they are realizing that there are too many complications in undertaking projects speedily, just for the sake of announcing that you've done so many kilometers of awards in a year, or that you're constructing so many this thing. I think it's a natural sort of a step that they're taking, which they needed to be, to internalize, because road building is a very complicated thing, and they can't just keep on building roads like that. So now they are insisting, for instance, that land should be fully available before they undertake a road project. All these are steps in the correct direction. Of course, it also it is incumbent on you also to ensure that while you are taking a measured step like that, that you also speed up the land acquisition, you speed up your managerial activities, and you provide the kind of conscious endeavor all around to be able to orchestrate that faster. While, yes, you shouldn't hurry it up, but at the same time, that shouldn't become an excuse for being slow and, just to allow things to kind of happen on their own.
Mm. Okay, I want to ask you another thing, Mr. Rajiv Chandra. In August, we heard about this letter from the Principal Secretary of the PMO written to the Roads Ministry worrying about NHAI's very large leverage and indiscriminate takeover of projects. How has this impacted NHAI's behavior, its options and actions?
Yes, that's a larger issue, and that needs much discussion and debate, why that is so and the circumstances in which that has been happening. It's not relevant only for, today. It's been there for several years, this speeding up and this so-called acceleration. And the letter from the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, I think, has been overhyped, and it was more of a letter. I mean, I've read that letter and seen it. It's more about expressing generic concerns, and those are the kind of concerns that you yourself have raised just now, and which we are all aware of, and those are things that you have to take note of. But it's not sort of saying that NHAI is not performing, or NHAI, there's anything going wrong.